Hi, everybody, and welcome back. My name is Melissa, and my goal this year is to share 365 tips with you for frugal living. I have made it through some tough financial times in my life. Let me tell you, I always have the wrong job at the wrong time. I was a loan originator during the housing crisis, and I only started like 6 months before, so I did not cause it. I was not one of those predators. I was a server during the pandemic, so I always manage to choose a job that just gets eliminated and my money goes away. So I have I have managed to survive some pretty tough times, and it's because of frugal living. So a lot of it was taught to me by my mom, my grandma. I come from a naturally more frugal family. My grandma saved and repurposed everything, like to the point where my mom was really kind of like, why did she save this? Why did the woman save an iron that didn't work? Well, probably because she figured at some point she would ask my dad, the electrician, to fix it or something. But, just to sign on it, figure out a different use. The woman always reused everything. And she had money. She could have bought new, but she reused everything. And my mom also was frugal and she used things until they were completely gone and shop sales. And I mean, my mom was the original coupon queen. I remember as a little kid going with her and she would get 90 to 100 boxes of cereal when they were on sale, like buy one, get one free. 90 to 100 boxes. She would use coupons that could double and everything. And we loved going with her that day because she never got us candy bars at the checkout aisle. But it would always end up that it was a negative balance. So they would technically owe her $1 to $3 after all of her coupons and the sales and everything were figured out. So she couldn't get the cash back, but she could use it to buy other stuff. So that was the day that we'd get candy bars. So we always wanted to go with her on cereal buying day because that was super exciting. And we went through a lot of cereal at my house, especially my siblings loved cereal. But she could also then donate surplus to food banks and shelters so that everybody could eat because 90 to 100 boxes of cereal is a lot of cereal. I mean, even in our family, that was probably a good year's worth of cereal. So I digress. Sorry, I tend to do that. But today's tip is use items that you can reuse. So just like everybody else in America, pretty much, I obviously have paper towels. I don't use them a lot. If I'm going to use paper towels, it's going to be for something like catching the grease off a sausage because that grease could ruin towels and it's really hard to clean, so that I feel like it's worth it. But for dishes, I have had the same dish rags for years now. Gosh, I got them when my kid was little, I think, but possibly before he was born. So I've had them for anywhere between 15 and 25 years. And they still work. I got a package of like 20 of them and just cycle through. And like eventually they hit a point where they're starting to wear out and they'll become a rag. Another thing, sponges. This can be used over and over and over again. And because it's color coded, I use them for specific things. So this is my sink and stove cleaning sponge that I can use with either dish soap or Comet. I also use rags because, these are all dirty and have to be cleaned. So I have rags for wiping up. I have microfiber rags. I have the little rags for polishing that are kind of almost like more of a lint free. But you can see, if you look, I will always have my rag for dishes, a rag for wiping off the counters. I normally have a rag for scrubbing the counters, but not necessarily this time. And then I use them under things like the coffee maker that gets frequent spills. So that way it kind of catches it. And then I put them, I don't know if you can see, behind my thing so that it prevents flooding, and that way I can just change them out. But rags are an amazing resource. They can quickly and easily be rewashed. I do all of my laundry by hand, and I can easily wash my rags. They're just their own separate load. So this will probably be washed shortly in a very small load. I won't use as much water or as much detergent, but it's pretty simple. And then the ones that get used for dishes are washed separately from the rags that get used for cleaning, but you don't have to go out and buy fancy microfiber ones either. One of the coolest things I inherited was my grandma's rag bin, and it was just this huge box of rags. And as towels wore out, she would like cut them, rip them down to size so that they could be used for other things. And as t-shirts wore out, she would reuse those for like glass and stuff. So you don't have to go out and buy rags. You don't have to spend a ton on microfiber. I mean, if you have them, use them. But you can frequently make rags out of things you already have, especially if they're like more natural fibers. A lot of things we have nowadays are not. I'm so sorry, but cotton is amazing, and it can be used time and time again, and it's great. So like an old cotton t-shirt, you can, after once it's got holes, and I mean, don't do it to one of your kids or husband's favorite shirt or wife's favorite shirt. They'll be ticked if it's like their favorite concert shirt. But if they agree they don't need it anymore, cut it down. You can use it for other things. And as your rags and dish rags get worn out, use them again. But I feel like there's a lot of people who only use sponges. Sponges wear out so quickly. That's why I don't use sponges for dishes, and I prefer a dish rag. That waffle texture, that, here, let me grab one that's dried. Okay, sorry, this is dirty, but it's dry. But this waffle texture, I don't know if you can see, works really good at scrubbing. So it's super convenient. I prefer to sponges, especially because like some of the sponges have that really rough texture that's like a scrunch on the one side, and that just scratches your pans and plates and everything. But you really, I mean, you can use dish rags for years and just easily wash them versus sponges. You're gonna just continually go through. I mean, honestly, you shouldn't use a sponge for more than a week. Even then, it's like risking hygiene issues. And people are like, oh, you can microwave them or you can boil them, but there's still huge debates over this hygiene challenges with sponges. And so even if you're one of those people who uses it for like a month, and I can't stand, like, you can feel the slime on it, it really bothers me. My dish rags, if if I have a really greasy pan that I have to clean, I have like 10, 15 of these things. It started out as like 20, but they get worn out. But if I have a really greasy pan or something, and my dish rag gets dirty, or eggs stuck to the pan and then it like sticks in the washcloth, I can just wash it. You can't wash a sponge the same way. So that's why I would say use dish rags, use rags, and don't just keep on using, don't use things that are single use as much, and don't use things that are going to have to be replaced as often. Because if you go out and buy, let's say you go out and you spend $10 on 10 of these, those 10 will last you decades. You're spending less than $1 a year overall, versus 10 sponges isn't going to even last you. Let's assume you get cheap ones for like $1 each. That's not even going to last you a year. Honestly, I mean, in my estimation, 10 weeks at most. But like I said, if you did the 1 month thing, that's still 10 months, and then you're risking like bacteria and stuff. And if you like sponges, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be critical. My sponges that I do reuse, like I showed you, the Scrub Daddy, they get cleaned and bleached, and they're a different level of sponge. They're not just your typical cellulose sponge that holds everything in, and those are used. I regularly use bleach on them, so they are sanitized. But for the most part, I don't use sponges a ton. I use rags. I repurpose old towels and such into sponges, or not sponges. I'm sorry, rags, so that I'm not I'm not going through a lot. I will repurpose if it's the right fabric. I can repurpose it and use it for staining because I do a lot of woodworking. So instead of going out and constantly buying sponges, instead, the next time you're going to the store and going to get sponges for dishes, instead get dish rags. And if you're worried about scrubbing, you can also get a scrub brush. I use this frequently on cast iron. I actually should probably replace it. I have a new one somewhere. I just don't remember where I stuck it. But yeah, definitely a reusable item is better all the time. And then like even today, I made my kid pancakes and I used a towel in between it and in between each pancake to keep them separate instead of parchment. So that way, when it goes in the fridge, they don't stick together because I don't know if you're familiar, but pancakes frequently stick together and then it's a mess. So an item that can be reused is always going to be pretty much always going to be more frugal than an item that has a one time use or rather short shelf life. Um, for obvious reasons. I mean, Tupperware, you can be reusing them versus plastic bags. So today's frugal tip: use dish rags, repurpose other things into rags, and use rags instead of your single use items and sponges. Anyways, like I said, this year's goal is 365 tips for frugal living. If you want to hear more tips as your dollar gets squeezed tighter and tighter so that you too can survive over the next however many years until life gets a little more affordable and survivable again. Please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow.